My name is Don Green. Today I'd like to talk to you a little about a section in my book, Everything I Know About Success I Learned from Napoleon Hill. I would like to talk to you a minute or so about one of the chapters, which is opportunities. And the reason I wrote the chapter on opportunities, I've been asked at least 1,000 times, how did you ever get the job as executive director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation? Well, it involves opportunity. You know, in life, sometimes people don't come searching for us. Sometimes the ship doesn't come in. Sometimes we have to swim out where the ship is. So on one occasion, I spoke to a historical society in Pound, Virginia. I spoke to about 20 people. Two things I distinctly remember. One was they didn't feed me, and the other was they didn't pay me. But I was happy to go share them some information about Napoleon Hill. I was a bank president at the time. So that night when I came home, I wrote a little letter out, and I had my secretary the next morning send it out to the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And what would you know? I get a letter back from the foundation. They were impressed with what I wrote them, and they invited me to Chicago to have dinner with, of all people, the Board of Trustees and the chairman, W. Clement Stone, who I think was a billionaire at the time, a wealthy individual. And I'd read his books. I listened to him on the tape, and I couldn't wait to meet him. They also paid my expenses. And I remember sitting in a boardroom of one of the airlines where Mr. Stone had connections, and we had dinner, and he finally looked at me and called me boy. He said, boy, he said, I believe you know more about these books than I do. He said, you ought to be a board member. So I said, Mr. Stone, what do I got to do? He said, just show up to the meetings and we'll pay expenses. So that's how it got started. So then a few years later, we've only had one executive director before, and that was Mike Ritt. Mike was needing to retire, and this was the year 2000. And the other board members said, Don, we understand you're in the process of selling the bank. Would you come to work for us? And I said, yes, but I don't want to live in Chicago. Well, what can you do? I said, I can move it to the University of Virginia's college at Wise, and I won't have to move. And they said, can you do that? I said, I've already got the books. All I need is the money. And so that's how we got our start, and that's called opportunities. Sometimes nobody will come up to you while you're watching daytime TV and say, boy or girl, have I got a deal for you. Sometimes we have to get out and we have to belong to the social club. We have to meet with people, and we have to take opportunities and make opportunities if they don't exist by reaching out and trying something else. I liken it a little bit. It's like getting out of your comfort level. It's venturing out to do something other that you may not be real comfortable with. I remember Charlie Johnson, who's our chairman. Charlie is a cardiologist who Hill sent to medical school. Charlie asked me, he said, Don, he said, how did you know about the book business? And I said, Charlie, all I know is I like to read books, and I've been involved in a lot of businesses. And I said, business is business. And if you love what you're doing, you're going to be successful at it. So sometimes the opportunity may not come to you. Sometimes you may have to discover your own opportunity and risk that. You know, you'll never get on second base as long as you're hugging on to first base. And yeah, sometimes it's a little uncomfortable to ask to speak to a crowd, travel, or some of the things comes before you. But that's a reason we can seek the help of other people. The main thing is that we take the first step, and then we look for the second one. I love the quote from Reverend Martin Luther King. It said, we don't have to see the last step to be able to climb the stairs. We only got to see the first step, and then we take them one at a time. And that's kind of what we try to do. When I started in 2000, our books were basically limited to the United States. They were published in Japan because of a connection with an audio company. The other countries, nobody bothered to contact them. Today, we've done business with 200 foreign publishers. In fact, I had an inquiry today from Russia. It said, have you done much business in Russia? And I looked. We have 38 different books published in Russia alone. And this goes on to countries like Czechoslovakia, Belarus, the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, Malaysia, everywhere you can think of, our books are being published.